What's up, and welcome to another episode of Trail Trials, the video review section of irunfar.com. My name is Travis Lyles, and today we're going to take a look at the X-Talon 212 by Inov-8. Inov-8's naming convention of their shoes is relatively simple. It always starts off with what the outsole is. So in this example, we're talking about the X-Talon outsole, followed by a number, and that number in this case is 212. 212 represents grams, so we're looking at the X-Talon outsole and a 212 gram shoe. And if you're trying to do some quick math, that equates to about a 7.5 ounce shoe in a UK size 8, which also translates into a men's US 9. So, extremely lightweight, 7.5 ounce shoe. So what we're going to do is walk through, we're going to look at the outsole, we'll look at the midsole, we're going to look at the upper, and highlight anything else that might be of interest. So let's start off by looking at the X-Talon outsole. So what you ought to be able to see here is some extremely aggressive lugs, relatively deep and flexible. This X-Talon outsole has sticky rubber compound on it. And basically what that means is when it's wet, you're going to be able to, it's going to react, it's going to create friction between those items on the ground that might be slick, and hopefully give you a little bit better traction. Downside of the sticky rubber is that it does wear down faster than some of the endurance rubber compounds that Inov-8 offers. As we look through this shoe, we can just point out really quickly that it's extremely flexible, the whole thing. So you can see there's not necessarily one point in the shoe that is, a point where the shoe has to pivot off of. And a lot of that comes from the fact that there's not a rock plate in this. So it's a little bit dirty, but you probably couldn't see it anyway. Usually on an Inov-8 shoe, you'll be able to see different colored plastic, or you'll be able to tap on this section right here and feel some hard plastic, which would finger out into underneath your feet and provide protection for your toes and for your foot from anything sharp coming through. This actually doesn't have that, but this rubber is relatively dense and keeps things from poking out, though you do get a feel for the trail, sometimes good, sometimes bad. So we move to the midsole here. Almost all Inov-8 shoes have this arrow system on the back of the heel. This is a 2-arrow cushioning, which is currently their lowest amount of cushioning that they have, basically meaning that you're not going to get a lot of mushy feel out of this shoe. But the cushioning that is here is relatively shock absorbing. So for as lightweight and as minimal as that cushioning is, you still get an okay amount of cushioning, though it's not going to be like a pillowy type of feel like maybe you're used to in a road type of shoe. Single density foam all the way around. You can see that with this orange. You might notice this black line on here. That's nothing more than a design. So there's not really anything inside of there that's causing, pronation control. It doesn't have medial or lateral posting. It's basically single density, low profile shoe. Very low profile heel also. As we move on to the upper, it is a very tightly woven mesh, which is extremely nice, I think. Because it does breathe pretty well. Water is able to get out of it, but you don't get a lot of dust and sand and things like that getting in the shoe. The tongue actually takes up a lot of space inside of the shoe, and I don't mean that it's overly thick, I just mean that it's pretty wide, so it covers a fair amount of the inside of the shoe, keeping that grip from potentially getting in, but it's not, it's not attached to the inside of the shoe. The tongue is standalone by itself. All the way around the outside of the shoe, you'll actually see this sort of black color, black and gray in some places. Mainly what you're getting out of that is some extra durability. So maybe, some common things you might see in some shoes is a blowing out in this area because it stresses that mesh. So the lighter weight the shoe, usually the less durable the materials. I think they've added this sort of bumper all the way around the shoe to address some of that. So it is a little bit thicker, kind of a suede type of feel to it. And you'll see that extends all the way around the shoe. They also have what's known as the meta cradle, and you'll actually see that represented by this kind of rubber laminate that's overlaid on the upper, on the mesh. And basically what that's doing is creating points where the laces can attach and really grip and hold that foot in and make a secure fit. I will say this shoe, at least on my foot, holds really stable. It's a little bit narrow in the toe, but you know, there's still some room for your foot to move, and the upper itself is relatively secure. So especially if you're hammering some downhills or maybe some switchbacks really hard, I didn't notice my foot sliding around too much. From the heel, no heel counter in here, so it's all foam. It is a relatively structured heel in the way that it's made, and that's basically just because of this kind of this suede type material that we discussed earlier that's on the back. But it is fully collapsible. There's no plastic or anything like that in there, maintaining its shape. So it does, at least in my case, tend to conform relatively well to my foot. From an insole perspective, you do have a removable insole. If you can see that, you'll note that it's very flat and very thin. So it's not really providing a lot of support, but I guess if you wanted to put orthotics in this, it's possible, though that does sort of get away from the idea of, you know, Inov-8 shoes, which is basically to put something on your foot, let your foot do the work, and provide a little protection for you. But it does have a removable insole, and there's actually, from an accessory standpoint, you can get different sizes of these. So if you don't have, you know, if your foot's slopping around in here too much, you can actually get another footbed at half of this size and lay it on top of it. Or if you don't have enough room, you could get one of the thinner insoles, take this one out, you know, throw it aside, and have a little bit more wiggle room in there if that's something that you need. From a toe box perspective, it is somewhat tall. As I did mention, it is a little bit narrow, but it's not really a tapered toe box. It actually kind of bubbles up after the end here. So you do have some okay room in here for your toes to wiggle around, but it is a little bit tighter fitting shoe and mainly meant for shorter distance. If you wear it longer distance, obviously you can. I have a buddy that I train with all the time. This is all he wears. He wears them for 50Ks, he wears them for 50 milers, he wears them for all his training and really likes them. So maybe just look at sizing up potentially if you're going to wear these for the long haul. From a toe box perspective, from protection, you actually have a pretty good rubber bumper here on the front. It's not, you know, a complete rock-proof type of toe box, but the outsole extends all the way up, creates this toe box or creates this toe bumper here on the end. So if you are kicking rocks or stub your toe or anything, you do get a fair amount of protection. And this material here, that suede material that we discussed earlier, sort of extends around there to give you some extra protection from getting those black toenails. So the X-Talon 212 by Inov-8, extremely lightweight, extremely grippy. As I mentioned, held my foot in place really well. A good shoe for going out, going fast. I will just note here, if you look at the arch support in here, it's extremely low. So, you know, Inov-8 really prides himself on sort of the minimal, letting your foot do the work. And I will say that this shoe, compared to some of my other shoes, really make me put a lot more concentration or effort into getting into a shoe this lightweight. But I do, you know, I do like breaking these out from time to time and going out for a run. So, Inov-8, X-Talon 212, 7.5 ounces, super grippy. Check them out at Inov-8, INOV-8.com. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.